Evaporation can cause quite a significant drop in a pond's water level. It's often a concern, especially for new pond owners, as they immediately think they have a leak. So in this video, I just wanted to discuss some of the main causes of pond evaporation, how much is reasonably normal, a handy way to avoid panicking, and ripping your pond apart looking for a leak, and how you can or should go about topping up the water that is lost. If you don't already know me, my name is Kev, and the aim of my channel is to help people build and maintain ponds without spending a fortune. If that sounds like something that interests you, you might like to subscribe and visit my website, ozponds.com. Obviously, the main culprit of evaporation is going to be temperature. Here's a little chart I put together which shows some pretty average pond level drops at different temperatures. This can be useful to put your mind at ease if your pond falls into these ranges. Windy conditions will also cause a decent amount of evaporation, even if these conditions occur at night. The wind moves the water level up and down, and as it does, the water that is pushed up onto the sides of the pond is exposed more to the wind, and therefore it dries up really quickly. Pretty much in the same way a blow dryer dries your hair. Not that I need one. Next is wicking. Certain materials or decorative features like rocks and logs, they can suck up water like a straw. Even leaves can do this. The water's soaked up and it dries as it's exposed to the air, or in some cases it can wick up over the liner and onto the ground, and that speeds it up significantly. This is one of the reasons why I like to be able to easily inspect the edges of my liner, especially around streams and waterfalls. Geotextile underlayment can act as a good wick, so make sure it's either fully inside the liner or fully outside the liner. Anything bridging the liner is a potential wick. Plants inside the pond will also consume a significant amount of water, especially in warm conditions. This is when most plants are actively growing, so they need plenty of water. Then we have splashing. The longer your streams or the larger your waterfalls, the more splashing you'll inevitably have and the more water you'll lose. Often we don't notice how much water we're losing to some of these factors when the weather's cooler and there's regular rainfall. Then the weather warms up and multiple factors start occurring at once and the water level drops. And that's why new pond owners are the first to freak out. It becomes easier as you experience multiple years with the pond. You see what is normal and what isn't. One thing that I've found helpful is having a small container pond, like this pond in a plant pot. It has no pump, and I know it has no leaks, but it has plants. This gives me a reasonable baseline of how much evaporation my nearby ponds should be experiencing. If the other ponds are dropping significantly more than this pond pot, I might need to investigate what the cause is. Usually it's just some type of wicking, or maybe an overgrown plant in a stream that's created a bit of a dam and some water is escaping the liner. Something similar to this can be a cause of water loss for people that live in freezing conditions. The ice can create a dam and water spills outside the liner. There's one more common cause of water loss that's not a leak, and that's water in motion. If you have a long stream and a full pond and the pumps are shut off, say a power outage overnight, all the water in the stream will flow back into the pond, but because it isn't being recirculated, this water overflows the pond and it's lost. When the pump turns on, the water required for the stream will leave the pond. So you may wake up in the morning and notice the pond level is significantly lower than the day before. Anyway, pretty much anywhere you live, there'll be times when you need to top up the pond. I live in a high rainfall area and there's still at least 2 months of the year where I'm regularly topping the ponds up. I'm of the opinion that the best water for topping up is rainwater. When we lose water to evaporation, only the water is lost. It's not like when you do a water change where you remove water and some of the impurities. Mains water and bore water could contain elements that you don't want in your pond. In the past, I've noticed that when I top up with town water, I can get extra algae growth. This could also be because there's a higher concentration of nutrients due to the water evaporation that's occurring. When there's lots of rain, the pond is getting water changes, and some of these nutrients are being diluted. If you have a bore and you've always used it to top up the pond, then there's no reason to stop now. The pond and the ecosystem is adapted to that water. Mains or town water can vary. You never really know what's going on with it. All we assume is that it's safe for us to drink. Sometimes I've topped up with no issues, and sometimes, like I said, extra algae growth comes soon after. I assume it's due to phosphate, but I can't be sure. That's just my hypothesis. Because I have lots of ponds, I've purchased a water tank that I use to top up the smaller ponds. On my larger pond, I have a downpipe from the roof directed to the pond. I can flick this valve, and that will direct water to the pond, or if I flick it the other way, it'll direct it to the stormwater system. This is handy because if it hasn't rained for a while, there's all kinds of elements that will get washed off the roof and into the gutters and then end up in the pond. Therefore, letting the rain wash the roof a bit before flicking the switch to the pond helps keep the water going into the pond a bit more pure. There's automatic ways to set this up. If you just Google first flush systems, it'll give you some good ideas. If you do need to use mains water, don't worry, it's not the end of the world. If you're placing a large amount of new water into the pond, say 10% or more, it's probably a good idea to use a water conditioner. This will remove any chlorine, chloramine, and heavy metals that will protect the fish and the good bacteria. If you're just drip feeding in small amounts at a time, I personally don't worry about a water conditioner. All of my ponds I like to top up manually. Like I mentioned, I'm in a pretty high rainfall area, so it's only for a month or two that I need to do this. But there's plenty of devices that you can buy that will top the pond up automatically if it drops to a certain level. I'm lazy, and this should be right up my alley, but it's not. If the ponds were on auto top up, I'd never know if there was an actual leak. Anyway, that's some of the things that I do and how I manage evaporation. Obviously, it's a bit different all over the world, but hopefully this video was helpful. If so, feel free to tickle the thumbs up button. Thanks for watching. See ya.